At this time last year, everybody was saying things are going to be so great, and Russ was going to change, and this was going to happen, and that was going to happen. We are in the annual rite of passage where in September, everybody except for Lonzo Ball is healthy. Everybody's feeling good. Everybody's ready to go. It's all going to be awesome. It's all kumbaya. And then you get to mid-October and the season starts, and then you really find out what's going on.
Hello and welcome to the Hoop Collective podcast. We talk about the NBA, which we're doing this week on Wednesday afternoon. Joining me from New York City is Tim Bontemps.
Hello, guys.
Wearing a New York Mets hat.
That's right.
Joining us in his last day in Europe, about to leave Cologne, Germany after watching pool play in EuroBasket, is Ben MacMahon.
Howdy, partners.
How are you holding up on your European drama there?
Ready to come home, not gonna lie. It's been a great trip. It's been some interesting things, but had a lot of fun. Saw some really interesting hoops. Just had maybe the worst dinner of my life because I didn't have enough cash. I spent all my cash and nowhere takes a credit card, so I had to get like sandwiches from a German grocery store because the hotel kitchen was closed. So
this is the kind of analysis you came here for.
Yeah, unlike Luca, I am not finishing my Cologne stay with a bang.
Well, he certainly did that. You were at the game that was Wednesday morning, I guess, here in the U.S. Slovenia against France. Great international basketball game. Luca had 47, MacMahon?
47.
Against Gobert and Evan Fournier. He made a couple of shots over Gobert, although by the end of the game, the French were essentially double and triple teaming him.
Yeah.
And
one of their guards basically said, why didn't we do that earlier in the game?
Yeah.
Fair question.
Yeah, they were switching for a while. Gobert ended up on Luca several times, and it was just Luca being Luca. You were on NBA Today with me today to talk about it. And I think you said it was a classic Luca LOL performance.
Yeah, I mean, today was crazy. And honestly, the last 2 days. So for those who don't follow EuroBasket closely, this group plays 5 games in 7 days. And it used to be 5 and 5, I understand. Now it's 5 and 7. So Luka stunk it up against Bosnia. His right wrist is bothering him. He went 0 for 8 from 3, turned it over a bunch, didn't play well. Bosnia beat Slovenia, which is no disrespect to Jusuf Nurkic, but that's a pretty massive upset. Slovenia being the defending champion here, obviously, went to the finished 4th in the Olympics. And this was the first time I think that Luka in a Slovenia uniform really was kind of dealing with adversity, pressure, if you want to call it that. If you remember, they lost to Germany in a World Cup qualifying game right before EuroBasket and didn't look good doing it. Then they lose to Bosnia, and there's bickering, man. Luka's yelling at the coach on the sideline for the whole arena to see, not to mention the refs throughout the game all the time. Goran Dragic called the coach out. Dragic only played, he lit it up in the first quarter, then only played a total of 24 minutes in the game. And Dragic, nice guy. Slovenian media asked him about that. He had a very brief answer and stomped off. I said, what do you say? They said, ask the coach. that was Dragic's answer. Other guys were so as Ido Muric, who is the player who went to the podium today after Luka scored 47.
Wasn't a podium game for Luka. He eschewed the podium.
Luka could have scored 77. He wasn't going to the podium today. He went there once during this trip. Anyways, as he told the Slovenian reporters, they had a crisis meeting after that Bosnia game. They had a day off after that. Had a crisis meeting, poured some pure wine, and basically talked.
Not a team meeting, a crisis meeting.
Yes. And
what would that be reaction if on the podium during the NBA playoffs, a player said, well, we We had a crisis meeting.
I might just start
yesterday.
calling them crisis meetings. Let's just do that. Forget this team meeting nonsense. Just call it a crisis meeting. Anyway, so they go have some wine at the crisis meeting.
And Luka came back and tapped into that there is a ruthless competitiveness about him that, there's only a handful of guys I think you see it in. And couldn't shoot very well still against Germany. The wrist is bothering him, all that. Absolutely just bullied them. I mean, guys are bouncing off him. Everything's through contact. He's finishing the lane, crazy floaters, reverse layups, fadeaways. 36 points, 10 rebounds in that game. 36 was the Slovenian EuroBasket scoring record, beating Goran Dragic's 35 in the last final by 1. That record did not last 24 hours. He came out. Gobert got in early foul trouble. Luka got cooking, and that was that. And when Luka, I'm sure if you guys have seen the highlights, you saw this one. Shot clock's running down. He's kind of out in no man's land. Gobert's on him. He's going left, jumps. So he's like headed toward out of bounds. He's outside the 3-point line, just throws it up. It goes in.
Clock, right?
In the shot clock. And as everybody's favorite Denver Nuggets Slovenian forward Vlatko Čančar told me, when that shot went in, he was like, it's going to be a long night for France. It was a long night. But it was a hell of a game, though, down the stretch.
Yeah, it was a great game. I don't know how you're going to enjoy better basketball in September on a Wednesday morning than you would have if you watched that on ESPN Plus.
Right. By the way, I mentioned Goran Dragic wasn't thrilled about his minutes when they lost to Bosnia. He'd been coming off the bench because they were trying to stagger the minutes with him and Luka. Started these last 2 games, and he played 39-39 of a 40-minute game today.
Yeah.
At age 36. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how the Mavericks feel about Luka playing 5 games in 7 days with a sore wrist, and I think he's got a sore hand, and he was bleeding for a while today.
It don't particularly matter what the Mavericks think, because he is going to be playing.
Well, you remember
in these games
10, 12 years ago, like maybe it was even longer. Mark Cuban led a crusade where he didn't want his players playing in international.
Well, it's funny, they retired Dirk's number here. I believe it was the first night. And Cuban, and a Mavs contingent came over for that. And Dirk specifically, the one non-German, thing that he said during his speech was he thanked Cuban for always supporting him, representing his country in the summers.
Make sure to say it not in German.
I don't think Cuban's German's that good, but no, Cuban definitely.
So they wouldn't boo him,
right? Cuban. Well, I don't think they're booing Dirk.
They're booing Cuban.
I meant booing Cuban, but Dirk could probably say anything, and they're not booing him.
Well, he always complained, but he never kept Dirk complaining about Luka playing, because they're not going to do anything aside from maybe not signing Goran Dragic, not offering him a real role, which is neither here nor there. But they're not going to do anything to ruffle his feathers.
By the way, you were on the Low Post and you were talking about them looking at Dennis Schroeder. If these bozos signed Dennis Schroeder and didn't sign Goran Dragic, Luka's idol, to be a backup point guard off the bench, that would be completely insane if they do that.
My understanding is J Kidd doesn't think Dragic has any juice left, and they basically said, "Hey, do you want to be a foot shorter version of Boban and sit on the end of the bench all season?" He said, "Hell no." So,
all I'm going to say is I watched Dennis Schroeder nearly single-handedly destroyed the Boston Celtics season last year for half a season before he got jettisoned. And then they became the greatest team of all time for 2 months. So I would beware if I'm the Mavs, if that's the move, is to go sign
By the
Dennis
way,
Schroeder
playing for Team Germany, free agent Dennis Schroeder, 18.3 points, shooting 21% on 3. Not so good. 45% overall. One of a number of guys to pay attention to. Ah, that sound has to make you smile. It's the sound of another sale on Shopify, the all in one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big business. So upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility. Shopify has the tools and resources that make it easy for any business to succeed, from down the street to around the globe. Reach customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. Synchronize your online and in-person sales. Gain insights as you grow with detailed reporting of conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond. More than a store, Shopify grows with you. This is Possibility, powered by Shopify. So go to shopify.com/hoop, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/hoop right now. Shopify.com/hoop. MacMahon, not all of the teams are there with you in Cologne. They're all proceeding on to Berlin for the 16 round of 16-8 semis. 16-8 quarters, semis, finals.
The knockout rounds are in Berlin, to make that a little simpler than whatever you just said.
You are correct. That was a little clumsy. So you haven't seen the whole, like, for example, Giannis is absolutely kicking tail.
Yeah, I've watched some of that on TV. They'll have the other games on the TVs in the media center.
But but of the teams that you've seen in there in Cologne, what are your takeaways from?
Well, this was the so-called group of death in Cologne. And, I think that the short answer is it's pretty much the same as we thought going in. France misses Nando and Nicolas Batum. Batum basically said, hey, I'm going to save my legs for the Clippers this year. And so you've got three teams that have NBA superstars, 2 MVPs, and a guy who I would wager would be an MVP in the not too distant future. And those three are the favorites. Serbia cruised through their group to be the top seed. Greece cruised through their group to be the top seed. Giannis had 41 yesterday, a couple days ago when this comes out, and then it was tougher for Luka and Slovenia, but they made it through, and I think them kind of having to deal with that adversity, I think was good for them. They were so bad defensively against Bosnia. They were bickering. They kind of came together.
I mean, to be honest, I don't really care about, no offense, I don't really care about how Slovenia is playing as a team. I care more about how the guys are.
But Luka in particular, the focus and determination we've seen from him the last couple of days, it's impressive. And it's not just, it's not just the fact that he's scoring, 36 and then 47 with a bad wrist and now, bruised up fingers. And he didn't come out of this game till 38 seconds left in the first half. That's because he got an elbow that opened up a gash on his head. But it's not just that, like, he's locked in. So Franz Wagner, obviously the man, Franz Wagner, German, he was Germany's best player in the first few games. He had 32.
Let me tell you Franz Wagner's stats. So Wagner, number 8 overall pick in the 2021 draft to Orlando. He just turned 21. Combo forward. He averaged 16 points, but he had, as you mentioned, 32 points in a big game against Lithuania. And more interestingly to me, shot 50% in these first 5 games from 3-point range.
He shot it really well. He's created off the dribble. He's done stuff moving off the ball. And again, 3 games, he looked great. He disappeared against Slovenia. And I'm going to tell you, he went scoreless in the first quarter, and Luka was guarding him. And then the biggest defensive play of that game was Luka chasing Schroeder. Schroeder got a layup and swatted it off glass to kind of steal the win. So again, I just obviously Luka, there's talent, there's skill. The dude competes. He doesn't always train the way you want him to. He doesn't always, practice. You have to make it competitive, I think, to get him engaged. But we've seen these last couple of days, playing the fourth and fifth game in a 7-day stretch, unbelievable focus and competitiveness. And I will say the thing, obviously the Mavericks, the guy's getting beat up. You're concerned about that. They don't have to worry, though. Is he going to report to camp in shape? He'll be in game shape unless he has the most spectacular week and a half ever.
I think they actually probably want to give him some of the start of camp easy after this because, they have a chance to go to the end here, as does Serbia. Serbia was undefeated in the group play. Jokic, I mean, you don't need to know about Jokic. Here's all I need to tell you. He's averaging 20, 11, and 5. Jokic is Jokic. Like I said, Giannis is Giannis. The most important thing with Giannis did he get hurt? Here, Giannis averaged 31 points so far in this tournament, and he shot 9%.
Yeah, and Giannis, he did sit out a game against Great Britain, which is not exactly a basketball powerhouse. Right. And the coach, Kurt Goldsberry, was there actually. The coach said it was because he was a little sore. He played the next day and had 41 against Ukraine. So
the coach doesn't understand that when you give a player off for rest, he hasn't learned,
load management,
back stiffness. Don't say, even if he does have a sore knee, don't say sore knee. Say something else. So the thing about when players play for their national team, they have a different role. So, for example, Lauri Markkanen is averaging 26 a game for the Finns, or the Finnish. It's because everything is being funneled through him. We know who Jokic and Jonas Valanciunas is. Valanciunas is putting up good numbers for Lithuania. I'm more interested in Franz Wagner. I'm interested in Alperen Şengün from the Rockets, who's playing for Turkey. Who averaged 18 points and shot 50% from the field, actually 60% from the field in this tournament. I'm interested in Franz Wagner. Those are the guys I'm interested in. I mean, one of the guys who's made some headlines a little bit is Tyler Dorsey, who I believe is American, but he's playing for Greece.
He's a naturalized citizen.
I think he does have like a Greek grandparent.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but
so he's Mavericks. Go ahead.
Mavericks two-way guy, and I was talking to some Mavs folks while they were here, and there's optimism that he might actually contribute. Like he might actually carve out some rotation minutes this year. He's been great when Giannis played. Then when Giannis didn't play against Great Britain, he didn't do a whole lot in that game. But you know what? Okay, so he's a guy who needs to play off a superstar. They happen to have one of those guys in Dallas. He's a shooter who can kind of attack closeouts. Question is, can he guard at the NBA level? We'll see. But he's been interesting. Franz Wagner,
he's 26. He's not exactly a he's not exactly
he went
to
Oregon.
Prospect.
He went to Oregon. He was a second-round pick by the Hawks. He played a couple of years for the Hawks, and then he went back over to Europe and played for a couple of years.
Yeah, and he turned down a 2-year, $3 million deal. In Greece to sign on a two-way. So he took about a third of the money to sign on a two-way because he's betting that he'll parlay that two-way into a standard contract. So we'll see. I think he's got a shot.
So a couple of guys I want to mention. Simone Fontecchio, I think I said that correctly, who was an Italian, not a surprise, an Italian who has played very well for the Italians. He's a forward, 26 years old, just signed with the Jazz, was one of the better players in Europe the last couple of years, just signed with the Jazz. He's played well for Italy. Of course, the Italians lost Danilo Gallinari last week to a torn ACL, which was not good news for the Celtics. But Fontecchio, I believe I'm saying it right, interesting guy who, I'm sure will get some time for the Jazz this year. And as I talked to some scouts who have been over there, they really have been moved by what Franz Wagner has shown. I put him on my second team all rookie He had some
Yeah.
real moments for the Magic last year. And the reason I think it's interesting, I mean, the Magic are a team that we're going to pay some more attention to this year, mostly just because of, we want to see how Paolo Banchero looks there. And just, they're a team that's probably going to take a lot of losses, but, last year, they had 2 lottery picks, and Wagner had the more notable rookie year because Jalen Suggs was hurt for so much of it. But Wagner is a guy to watch, and it brings up an interesting point, Bontemps. Wagner was the first significant piece that the Magic used from the trade that they got when they made the deal with the Bulls. The pick that was used was the Bulls. It was a top 4 protected pick, ended up being the 8th pick. The Bulls, made the move to get Nikola Vucevic because they thought this was going to be like, they were trying to hit the gas. And the Bulls are watching their draft pick potentially do really well. And the Bulls had some bad news to get reported this last week by our Ramona Shelburne and Jamal Collier that Lonzo Ball is not going to be ready with his knee injury for the start of training camp, and likely not for the start of the regular season. And so the Bulls have a lot on their plate, but I would feel a little bit queasy, not only about how well Wagner is doing, but their pick this year still goes to Orlando, top 4 protected. And now your point guard, who was a real part of their early season success last year, has an uncertain future.
Yeah, and Wendell Carter is already better than Nikola Vucevic, so it's pretty much a disaster across the board.
I don't think that's a slam dunk statement, but
I think that's a bold statement. But I think the first part's a bold statement. I don't think the second part is, and I didn't like that trade at the time.
I was gonna say before I got cut off, if at minimum you want to say they're the same level player. Vucevic is going this way, Wendell's going this way, and Wendell's on a much better contract. Beyond that, MacMahon at the time of this trade was way down on it. I was, I guess, lukewarm on it, but MacMahon hit this one out of the park because this has been an absolute disaster for the Bulls. Now, you look at where they're sitting at. Obviously, DeMar had a great year last year. They got back to the playoffs again for the first time in a few years. But if you're spinning this thing forward, not only did they give up Franz Wagner and Wendell Carter Jr., who together are clearly better than Nikola Vucevic at this point, they also gave up another top 4 protected pick in 2023, this upcoming draft, which is a loaded draft. And if we look at where the Bulls sit in the Eastern Conference, even if Lonzo Ball is healthy, I think it's not assured they're a playoff team. If Lonzo Ball's out for any significant amount of time, you start checking off the teams in the East, it's hard for me to see the Bulls being in the top 8. I mean, I think they'll probably be a play-in tournament team almost no matter what, because they're, I think, a level above teams like the Knicks and the Wizards sort of that are fighting for 10th. But that's not what the Bulls envisioned when they traded for Lonzo and signed and traded for DeMar and traded for Vucevic. This was a team that was supposed to be fighting for home court advantage in the first round, to be winning playoff series. That was what they were billed as. And in reality, you look at it now, yes, they got Zach LaVine back. They have a solid team, but you look at how good and deep the Eastern Conference is. I'd be feeling pretty queasy if I was running the Bulls right now, looking at it saying, what direction is this team going in? What's a loaded Eastern Conference with an older talent pool already on the roster, and now you've got injury issues for Lonzo on top of it.
Yeah, and at the time, I didn't like it because I didn't think there was any way the Bulls were going to be more than first-round fodder at best. If they didn't sniff the first round in that first year, really adds to the pain of the deal.
Well, their pick ended up 8th.
Yeah, and Franz Wagner, he was an easy. There's a strong argument for him to be a first-team all-rookie guy last year.
By the way, he was first-team all-rookie, and he was on my first-team rookie ballot.
Good.
God bless you. What a genius! Another Bontemps genius moment.
But this dude is 6'9".
I went to look to see if I actually put him on first team so I could say that, because I couldn't legitimately remember.
There you go.
He was very good as a rookie.
But he's 6'9" and not skinny. He's competitive, and I'm telling you, the skills, he can run pick and roll for you. He can catch and shoot. He can shoot off the move. He moves well without the ball inside the arc too. Jamal Mosley came out to see him, the Magic's coach, for a few days, and I talked to Mosley a little bit. And I'll tell you this: Mosley thinks the guy's a stud. He thinks he's a foundation piece type of dude, and he had a rough one against Slovenia, but you see the development, you see the potential for him to be who you can run a lot of stuff through. And if he's that dude and Banchero's that dude, they've at least got something started. Guys who are very young pieces that can grow if you're putting the right sort of dudes around them.
We'll talk. So, what do we talk about all the time? We talk about all the time that you want two-way wing players, right? Mm-hmm. And Franz Wagner is a two-way wing. Like, that's the most premium asset you've got in the league. And he's a great fit, to your point, man, playing next to Paolo as a guy who can guard either forward spot, who can play, both on and off the ball. He's becoming a better shooter. As Brian pointed out, he's shooting the ball well. He shot 36%, 35% from three last year, which is perfectly fine as a rookie. Like, that combo, that forward combination going forward with him and Paolo. I mean, if you're a Magic fan, obviously it's been a rough bunch of years, but that's a pretty exciting foundation to be looking at going forward.
I would bet on the Magic winning a playoff series over the next 5 years over the Bulls. I think the Bulls will be in the playoffs probably this year, but
I have to say, that's an interesting statement.
There's a lot more upward mobility for Orlando, certainly.
Yeah, the Eastern Conference is so competitive, and the Bulls, watching this summer, as the Bulls watched Atlanta, who we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes, upgrade with DeJounte Murray, watching Cleveland upgrade with Donovan Mitchell, and then the Lonzo Ball thing. They were not the same team after Lonzo got hurt last January, particularly defensively. So just to recall, when Lonzo got hurt, it was a torn meniscus, and the press release that the Bulls put out when he had the surgery, which is at the end of January, they were saying a 6 to 8 week recovery timetable. Now, if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you know that I always say that there's no such thing as minor knee surgery. It's only minor knee surgery when it's not your knee. But when you hear about a meniscus surgery that's a 6 to 8 week timetable, that means that the meniscus was snipped or partially removed. It does not mean the meniscus repair. The meniscus repair surgery is something that knocks you out for months. So while I don't 100% know what type of surgery it is, the timetable that the Bulls put out in their press release indicated it was the partial snipping of the meniscus. And so for him to not be ready by the end of the season, they also said he had a bone bruise in his knee at the same time. So, that's the thing. For him not to be ready by the end of the season was worrisome. For him not to be ready, they're basically saying he's probably not going to be ready by mid-October. And they really don't know for sure when he is.
Yeah. The Bulls, just to read them, the Bulls sent out 2 releases during the season. Back on January 20th, they said, following initial period of rest and targeted intervention, Bulls guard Lonzo Ball will undergo arthroscopic surgery on his left knee and is expected to return in 6 to 8 weeks. So that'd be sometime in mid to late March, right? Then on April 6th, the Bulls put out, Chicago Bulls guard Lonzo Ball will not return for the rest of the season. He underwent surgery on his left knee on January 28th. He continues to experience pain with high-level physical activity. He will continue daily treatment and rehabilitation in preparation for the 22-23 season. That's not great.
No. Now it's September 6th, and we still don't know when he's going to be on the floor again. That's pretty concerning.
September 7th, where I'm at. I don't know if it's...
Well, crap, I'm actually ahead of you then. Whatever, dude. I'm going home tomorrow. That's what day it is.
T-minus 1 day from home. That's all that matters.
Yeah. So, I would just think that, look, the Bulls didn't get, they put a lot into Patrick Williams. They believe a lot in him. Bontemps, you talked about two-way wings. They think that that's the type of guy who can be a core player for them. They think, okay, we don't have Franz Wagner, but we have Patrick Williams. They still have DeMarcus or
nice
DeMar DeRozan.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it certainly would be nice to have both. That's for sure.
Yeah. So there has been some discussion. Vujacic is going into the final years of his career. There's been some reporting out of Chicago that
of his contract.
Don't retire him yet.
I'm sorry.
Settle down there,
What,
Brian.
Was that a Freudian
man.
slip? I'm sorry. His contract. There has been some reporting that he may do a contract extension, or they may discuss a contract extension. So we'll see what happens there. But the Bulls, they were the 6th seed last year, I think.
They were the 6th seed.
Yeah, it's
And right behind them were the Nets, the Hawks, and the Cavs. And I'd say right
Hmm.
now, all three of those teams are better.
yeah.
That has
Yeah.
them in 9th.
Yeah, so you wouldn't feel great about the situation there, and they do need Lonzo back. So, and also Zach LaVine's coming off knee surgery now. That was also deemed, minor arthroscopic procedure. So, but I mean, I wouldn't expect him to be at 100%, just because even if he's feeling great, it just knee surgery takes some time. So,
Yeah.
They
I'm
just
sure
signed-
Bulls fans
Bulls
are
were,
sitting at home. I'm sure Bulls fans are sitting at home saying Patrick Williams missed all last year. Lonzo had these injuries. Zach LaVine had these injuries. Caruso had a bunch of injuries. If all our guys are healthy, our team is going to be good. Yeah, that might be true. I still think even with all those guys healthy, the Bulls are not in the top 4 in the East. I think they're somewhere in that
Well,
5 to 9 group with
The
these
Bulls
other
were
teams.
The Bulls believe Arturas Karnisovas he put a lot of stock into Patrick Williams. And
Yeah.
if Patrick Williams comes out this year and is a two-way monster, then we may have a different discussion.
That changes things for sure.
Yeah.
That changes
So-
things for sure.
But I don't feel great about the Bulls right now. So stock is down. All right. Before we move on, it's trivia time, Bontemps.
Yes.
Maybe he's got some Mets trivia about
I
Narco.
have some German trivia. How
Oh,
many?
my.
There have been 3. Oh, I shouldn't even said 3. There have been 3 all-stars from Germany in the history of the NBA. Who are they?
Dirk, Detlef Schrempf,
Yep.
and the
I made it easier by saying 3. I should have just said how many. I just said who have they been?
I feel like the last one's some kind of asterisk type of deal.
No, it's not.
Dominique Wilkins.
No.
Actually,
Like a guy who was born at Ramstein Air Force Base or something.
yeah,
Oh.
that's right. I think
Um,
Dominique was born in France.
Yes,
Looking it
Dominique
up.
is French,
Yeah,
not German.
yeah.
How dare you?
Sure wasn't Uwe Blob.
It wasn't him.
Schroeder's not been an all-star.
Nope. A good player, well-known guy. Not some kind of a trick question.
Good player, well-known guy.
This
Should
is the
be
one I
better.
thought you would struggle with, though. I was pretty sure you get Schrempf pretty quick.
Yeah, well, he was also a Maverick in my youth.
No, that's why I knew you'd get in right away.
Rick Smits was not German.
No, he was
Dutch-
Duncan Dutchman.
He was
Yeah,
Dutch.
I know.
Marist, Bobby Marks' alma mater, Marist, upstate New
Yeah.
York. Rick
Played
Smits.
with Rudy Gobert's dad there.
Played in
I
the
have no idea,
80s.
by the way.
Good scoring wing. Has been out of the league for a long time. Has worked in a bunch of different jobs with teams, so the league office.
Played in
Very
the 80s.
tall
has been
guy.
out of the league.
Wears glasses.
I mean,
Kiki Vandeweghe
Oh,
is the other guy.
Kiki Vandeweghe.
I didn't know he was born in Germany.
All right, that is an
I would-
asterisk. Come on.
Why is it an asterisk?
Did he grow up in Germany?
Oh, he's born there. I didn't think it was
Okay,
an
that's
asterisk.
why it's an asterisk.
I've talked to Kiki Vandeweghe a number of times. He does not have a German.
Yeah, I was
I've
gonna
talked to
say, there's
Kiki and
no
I've talked to
accent.
Detlef and I've talked
Maybe
to
he has.
Dirk, and they
Maybe he
don't
has
sound the
a.
same.
Let me see.
So a Mavericks legend, a guy who started his career with the Mavericks, and a guy who refused to start his career with the Mavericks.
He was born in West Germany. I'm trying to see if
Alright.
there was a move over.
All right. That's
I don't
an
think so.
asterisk.
Well,
All right.
There you
I
go.
didn't know. Learn
There's the
something new
third
every
guy.
day. All right. So every college football season, Goodyear knows the importance of winning on the road. The road will always demand confidence, the confidence to handle whatever the journey brings and to perform under tough conditions. And just like the players and the fans of college football, Goodyear is ready. Are you ready for the road? Visit Goodyear.com to find the right Goodyear tires for whatever road you're on this season. Goodyear, more driven. This week's edition of What's Going On In is with the Atlanta Hawks, who had an eventful offseason.
We're trying to highlight teams that have had a bunch of stuff go on in the offseason. Atlanta certainly qualifies.
For sure. So there was a time where I thought it was almost a guarantee that John Collins was going to get traded. Not only has he not been traded, but the Hawks made one of the big offseason moves when they traded for DeJounte Murray. Did they trade 3 firsts for him?
Believe so. Can I start off our discussion with a question?
Yeah.
How many backcourts are better in the Eastern Conference than Trae Young and DeJounte Murray?
In the East.
In the East. We got asked this in a 5-on-5 after sometime after the Donovan Mitchell trade. We got asked about Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. And I said, to lead in, I think Trae Young and DeJounte Murray are the best backcourt in the East.
I think
I mean,
I think there's an argument.
Point guards, like, Kyrie and
I mean,
Durant
they're both going to
technically
Kevin Durant
is not a guard.
I know, but they are both perimeter ball handlers. It's like saying,
no, they're not guards.
I know, but it's kind of
you
hard
could say
to
Ben
compare.
Simmons, and you could argue Ben Simmons and Kyrie Irving if you want.
I know, but I know what you're saying. But like, for example, like Boston, I know,
Jason Tatum's not a guard.
I know, but they handle the ball in the perimeter the same way that Murray and Young are going to do for the Hawks.
Harden and Tyrese Maxey have an argument. If
I think Maxey's a clear level below. And I actually think Trae Young is better than Harden at this point. So I don't think that one's that much up for debate.
And that one will be interesting.
The better debate to me is I think the only one that's really a debate is Garland and Mitchell.
Yeah.
It's a good question, but it's not. Like, for example, I would say the same thing with Milwaukee. Like, Chris Middleton handles the ball a lot. I know he's not a guard, but he handles the ball a lot. So, like, you're talking about your 2 primary ball handlers.
No, I'm talking about 2 guards. Who has 2 guards better than those 2 guys? It's not a complicated question.
Okay, I know, but we're kind of in a positionless NBA. Like, I mean, you don't want Jason Tatum doesn't handle the ball? You don't think Jason Tatum handles the ball?
He's not a guard. I didn't think this was going to be a controversial question in this respect. Jeez.
Well, DeJounte Murray.
The point was DeJounte Murray is underrated, I think, and is really, really good. And I think he
was
an all-star
together.
He's underrated, but they paid genuine all-star price for him.
They paid full market rate for him. I was talking about in the general, among the general populace. I know he was an all-star last year, but people don't think of DeJounte Murray right away because he's been playing in San Antonio. The team hasn't been good. I just think he's really good.
He fills their 2 biggest needs. You need plus defenders around Trae Young, and you need somebody else on that roster who can run the show when, for
Trae's off the court.
Yeah, whatever it is, 14 minutes or whatever it is that Trae Young sits. So he definitely makes them significantly better. It's a steep price to pay because I still think and I don't know how they get that. Maybe Hunter can kind of take a leap and become a legit number 3 guy. I like Capella, but he's more of your role playing big. Collins, I still, you're not involved in that many trade rumors, and I just think
there's some sort of time limit there.
I think he's probably has a real estate agent on speed dial at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're looking at the Hawks, in a lot of ways, man, to your point about the Vucevic trade before, you can make an argument that DeJounte Murray's trade is a similar trade, right? Now, he's obviously a younger player. He's a perimeter player. He doesn't have the defensive weaknesses that Vooch has as an interior player, which obviously hinder his upside, his ultimate upside. But to your point about you didn't like that trade because you make this trade, you give up this draft capital, and what's the ultimate ceiling? I think you can make a similar argument with this trade, and where you look at the Hawks, you look at the East, you go, where's the path for them to get out of the first round? And to Brian's point earlier about Patrick Williams, I think the argument for the Hawks getting out of the first round down the road is, to your point, DeAndre Hunter takes steps forward. he had a really good second year. He showed some real flashes. He's dealt with a bunch of injuries. If he can stay on the court, he looks like the kind of wing every team is looking for, especially alongside guards like that. And the other guy is Onyeka Okongwu, who's a really good young big in the conference finals a couple years ago, did an awesome job guarding Giannis in that Bucks series. He has some upside too to really take a step forward. And maybe that's how this team goes forward. But you trade all these draft picks, you're pretty locked in salary wise. The Hawks are going to need some of that internal improvement, I think, to really find a way to take a step forward. Because right now, again, they're probably in this group of teams. It's somewhere between 5 and 7 and 8 in the East. And they're going to have to find a way to jump up with having exhausted a lot of the resources to go get DeJounte in the first place.
Yeah. So they have some decisions to make still before the start of the season, primarily DeAndre Hunter's, he's extension eligible. He was a 4th pick in the draft. The 3 guys in front of him have extended. There's a number of guys who I think will come down to the wire in October, just because it's going to be hard to establish value. A guy like Tyler Hero, for example, maybe Grant Williams from the Celtics, Jordan Poole from the Warriors, those types of guys. And Hunter will be one of those guys. What will they handle? How will they handle the extension? Will they do one or not? They kind of, they've retrofitted their roster a little bit. It's a question about whether, Bogdan Bogdanovic, where he fits in. Do they look to trade him? They already moved Kevin Huerter in a move that, was aimed to free up long-term salary.
They got him a pick back after they traded a bunch of picks.
Right. They got a first-round pick back for him from Sacramento. So, they're, they still have some maneuvers they can make. But what I kind of think is interesting is they have, Hunter is a defender, DeJounte Murray is a defender, Okongwu is a defender. And then they have offensive-minded players like Trae Young.
Capella's still a defender.
Capella's a defender, right. John Collins he's an offensive mind. Trae Young, offensive mind. They have, Nate McMillan can go a couple of different directions with how he puts the team together. Travis Schlenk has given him a couple of different avenues to go down with the way they can do their roster. So they are, despite having traded for DeJounte Murray, they are still a very deep team that can both potentially use some of those assets, whether it's Collins or Bogdanovic or somebody else in a trade, or they picked up the extra first-round pick for Huerter that they could flip if they needed to. So unlike Cleveland, who really can't trade anything, unlike Chicago that is still out picks, there still is the ability for the Hawks, who kind of in my mind fit into that mix, for the Hawks to improve this roster as we go into the season. I don't expect anything before the season, but during the season. So they're a dynamic team. I don't know where they're going to end up though.
I was just going to ask that as another question. Maybe this will actually get an answer instead of an argument. But who do we think Atlanta or Cleveland is a better team? Because I think they're very similar.
Yeah, I would go Cleveland there, because I think that the backcourts are an argument, and I think Cleveland's front court's pretty significantly better.
The whole thing with Cleveland to me is, how good is Evan Mobley going to be this year? Is Evan Mobley going to take a leap forward? Is he going to be out there knocking down 3-pointers? Is he going to, because I've seen him be able to create on offense. Is he going to do more of that? Is he going to be more dynamic on that side of the ball? And I don't know, because the Cavs are weak on the wings. Whereas I think the Hawks may at their top end talent may not quite match up with Cleveland, but their overall depth and positional flexibility
that's
is
the thing. Their top end talent is still really good. Like they've got.
I agree. It's just Cleveland could have 4 All-Stars. Atlanta does not have 4 All-Stars.
We need to find like a category for Jared Allen to be in. That's not like he's.
I'll give you a category on the All-Star team, because that's what he was last year.
He was Jared Allen's really good.
By the way, you always do this. Like you do this with Sabonis. You're like, well, I know Domantas Sabonis made 2 All-Star teams, but it was in the Eastern Conference and blah, blah, blah. Well, if the guy's on the All-Star team, is an All-Star.
Okay, to me, Jared Allen
wasn't an injury replacement. He got put on the All-Star team.
Jared Allen and Clint Capella to me are very, very similar players. Is that an outlandish statement?
Hold on. If you're going to use the Vooch is going down, orders going up,
if you're telling me 3 years from now, Jared Allen's definitely going to be a better player. I'm not saying that. Capella's obviously at this point on the downswing. I agree with that. I'm just saying I don't think the gap between Jared Allen and Clint Capella is massive. Personally, their backcourts are basically the same. DeAndre Hunter is way better than any of the wings on the on the Cavs roster. You know, Bogdan Bogdanović is a very good swing guard off the bench. And Onyeka Okongwu was really good. He's another guy who has a ton of upside as a young big. Like, I'm not trying to bag on the Cavs. I think Jared Allen's really good. I think their 4 guys are awesome, but like they have very little depth beyond those guys. As we talked about, they have no wing players. So it's just interesting with the 2 trades those teams.
Their top end talent is better, but their depth and their wings aren't the same. That's what
I guess what I'm trying to say is I think Atlanta's a little better because I think the top end talent is pretty similar, and I think Atlanta has a lot more depth than the Cavs.
I mean, obviously, because I'm from Cleveland, a lot of people have asked me what I think about the Cavs and where they rank after this trade. And my answer is I don't know, because I don't know about Mobley. And I'm concerned. I think the Cavs obviously really improved themselves, and to get 4 guys in their early to mid 20s under contract, that's a huge get for a mid-market team. So I support the trade, but I don't know how good they are. And I would kind of say the same thing about Atlanta. I don't know how good they are, but their maneuverability with their roster is now greater than Cleveland's.
Well, did Atlanta overachieve more a couple years ago going to the East Finals, or underachieve more last year?
I would say it's somewhere in the middle. Like, I think like last year the Hawks finished with 43 wins when they had a ton of injuries. They never really had a chance to have their whole team for a long time. They were really good again from like January on. They were absolutely disastrous the first couple months of the season. Turned it around with one of the better teams in the East over the final 3 or 4 months of the season. So I think they're not a conference finals team, but you know, again, like them and Cleveland are fascinating to me. It's very similar. They both make these huge trades. They trade a lot of assets for young, dynamic guards that are under contract for 3 years each. And I look at them both, and I'm not sure either team is going to win a series with those guys on the roster.
I know. Mm-hmm. I agree. If ever, assuming health in front of them, those teams are good. Those teams are good. And that's the thing. Like, that's why we talked about the Bulls a little bit ago. I'm not even criticizing the Bulls. It's just that their margin for error, there's
going to be a really good team in the East that misses the playoffs, like a really good team.
And I think Detroit's going to be a lot better. I don't know if they're going to win a lot more, but when you see Detroit on your schedule, that's not going to be a guaranteed win, like maybe it has been in recent years. Yeah. And I think that's what's going to happen with these teams. It's going to be like the Cavs won 44 games last year. They added Donovan Mitchell. Yeah. Are they going to win 50? They might not win. They might be better.
They might not win 50. Right.
No,
I mean, even the Knicks, like we've talked a lot about the Knicks recently. Like the Knicks have 8, 10, 12, like rotation level NBA players. Like they're a deep, solid team. I mean, I'm not saying they're obviously not going to win 50 games or anything this year, but like you have to play the Knicks or you have to play the Wizards on a random night. Like they're not going to be a walkover team. Like it's just really hard. It's just going to be really hard to climb up.
I do think Atlanta can go into this season believing that things can go right and that they can be a top 5 team at the end. And I also think they could finish in the same spot they did last year, which I think was 9th. I think they were actually tied for 8th, and I think they lost.
They were tied for 9th with Charlotte.
Yeah,
and then they beat Cleveland in the play-in.
Right. So, but look, Trae Young had the best year of his career last year, and I don't think he's getting worse. And I think if you're a Hawks fan, did you like DeJounte Murray getting into a shouting match in the Seattle Pro-Am? Did you?
I didn't like a lot. I don't understand. Like he was on one at the Seattle program. Like why he got in that little weird beef with Banchero, which is like, dude, what are you guys doing? And then the thing where he's like slamming the ball on the guy's head, like showing up a non-pro and a pro-am, that was just a bad look. I don't know what was going on there. Like escape pop, and now you can act out. I don't know. It was weird.
I don't know. I just know that historically teams get nervous when the Spurs trade somebody. But in this case, I think they were just rebuilding. I think
they were rebuilding. They knew they weren't going to keep him long term, and it was time.
And they got a ton for him,
and a ton for him, including their own pick this year. Not that was part of the trade, but it was certainly factored into the thinking.
Yeah, that's
they're
what
going
to be Jazz thinking about trading Donovan before the season.
They're going to both those teams are firmly going to be in the tanking mix. No question about it.
By the way, our Jonathan Gavoni put out a very interesting story that came out on Wednesday. Maybe it came out Tuesday night. For MacMahon, it was, July it came out. But that Victor Wembanyama with his French team, the Metropolitan 94s, which I think is a great name for a team, are coming over to play the G League Ignite in 2 games in Vegas in early October, where Wembanyama will go up against Scoot Henderson. Now, Scoot Henderson is a 2-guard. Wembanyama is 7'4" with an
every single NBA team will have multiple people at those games.
Oh my gosh, it will be crazy.
I've actually talked to a lot of people with the French national team here, and unfortunately, old Victor W is not here. I was hoping he was going to play in EuroBasket. That didn't end up happening. He's been banged up. And talking to those guys, they say the only question is, can he stay healthy? They say, everybody knows 7'4", athletic. What is it, like a 10-foot, standing vertical reach? Like the wingspan's ridiculous. Skilled, can put it on the floor. Not just can shoot it, but can shoot from the logo, can shoot step backs.
He almost doesn't look like he's real.
Yeah, he's a Gumby.
His arms are so long, and he has such a handle. It doesn't look like it's
crazy.
Real.
They think he'll fill out some. Not that he'll ever be, a bodybuilder, but they think he'll fill out. And they say he did. Real smart. He's an interesting character. He's an artist. He's like a big Lego guy. They say he doesn't.
Him and Miles Turner. Miles Turner. Miles Turner's like the #1 Lego guy in the NBA.
But they say he doesn't play video games much, but like his teammates will play, and they'll play for a month or 2.
He won't get along with Ayton. He will get along with Turner.
Well, no, but they say he jumps on the video games in like 2 hours, is kicking these guys' butts who've been playing a game for a couple months.
Oh,
so he's supposed to be a really sharp, interesting kid. In addition to being 7'4" and ridiculously skilled at that size.
Those ignite games in October. There will not be games more heavily scouted in the world this year, probably, than those 2 games.
You might be right about that. Yeah. There's NBA like preseason games going on that time, but like.
Well, that's especially why there's literally no reason for every single team not to have their top 2 or 3 people all go to those games.
Well, and I don't know if the NBA executives and scouts love to watch teams practice. If they open a practice, I don't know what they will do, but if they were to make, they can go watch.
Then everybody in every front office period would go.
Oh my God, they would have that thing blanketed. There would be people be waiting around the block, NBA executives, to get into
for sure
them practice, because there's just not as much. What you're saying about Victor is like information that these guys want, MacMahon, that you're gleaning from your obviously tremendous skill speaking French. Congratulations on that. That's a great job.
Fortunately, their English is pretty good.
Their English is better than your French, I assume.
I've heard Bontemps speak French.
Mine too. No, listen, I said in mine too. Even though my last name is French, I got no chance.
Before we go, I wanted to talk about this tremendous press conference with Patrick Beverley that went down on Tuesday. The Lakers are truly going to be performance art this year. Russell Westbrook and Beverley, who we know don't like each other.
What do you mean? They were smiling, Russ threw him the towel. Come on, baby.
Look, Beverley last year ended up in Minnesota, made the best of it and got a contract extension out of it. He's going to do the exact same thing with the Lakers. He's going to get there and try to make the best of it, be the best soldier he can, be a pest to the opposition, have the fans fall in love with him, and try to get another contract. That's his goal. Russell Westbrook does not want to get traded, because if he gets traded, he's going to probably get cut, and it's going to be difficult. He wants to be in LA, so they're on their best behavior. But I just do not believe. Darvin Ham sat there with a straight face and talked about how they can work together. And I respect what he's doing. He's doing exactly what he should do as a coach. Bontemps, I just do not believe that the Lakers honestly, with a straight face, can believe that Patrick Beverley and Russell Westbrook playing together, which is what Darvin Ham said that they would do, is going to work. I just don't believe it. When you have LeBron, first off, in 2022, you have to have shooting. Beverley just has worst 3-point shooting year of his career. Okay, maybe he may get a little bit better, but he was just at the worst year of his career shooting the three. Westbrook is one of the worst long-range shooters the league has seen in recent times. You need you need shooting to space the floor for LeBron and Davis. This is a tenet of what won them the title. I just don't believe that they honestly think that that's going to work, Bontemps.
If they do, it's going to end very badly. So hopefully they don't, for their sake, because it will not work for all the reasons you just said. And look, I think, to me, it seems very likely that Russell Westbrook will get traded at some point. I would assume before the start of the season. In exchange,
I don't know about that. Well, I don't know about that. I think based on the executives I'm talking to, they believe that the Lakers have come to the conclusion that they are not going to trade Westbrook now because they don't like any of their offers, and they're going to try to make the best of it and see what happens. That's what the executives think.
Well, and listen, again, I was going to say, I think if they make a trade between now and the start of the season, it's because they think that will give them a chance to be, in theory at least, a chance to be a legitimately competitive team in the West in terms of winning the West and having a chance to win a title. If they can't make a trade that can do that for them, and it requires them giving up these future picks, I think you're hard pressed to do it. And I can understand why they would do that, because even though you got an old LeBron James, even though he just signed this extension, we've talked about it a lot. The Lakers have very few good players. They only have their two stars and not much else around them. And again, in the same exercise we've been doing a lot in the East, because we're doing what in the world's with a lot of these East teams: Phoenix, Memphis, Golden State, Dallas, Denver, Minnesota, New Orleans, the Clippers. Like, there's a ton of really good teams in the West, and the Lakers are going to have to take a significant jump forward with talent in order to keep up with those teams.
We have talked about potential Westbrook trades. We talked about a trade that they could make with the Jazz, for example. And by the way, from what I am told, while it would make sense for the Knicks to have done a 3-way deal with the Jazz and Lakers, I am told that never was part of the talks, that there were 3-team constructions between the Jazz and Knicks for Donovan Mitchell, where players would go to a third team. But I mean, obviously they didn't do a deal, but that the Lakers were never directly involved with that. MacMahon, I just don't think the Lakers, the Jazz, a potential Jazz trade, I don't think the Lakers believe right now there's a Westbrook trade that they have, even with their picks, that elevates them. So I think they're going to try. The feel within the league is right now, and it could change in a week, but the feel within the league from the executives I talk to right now is they're going to try to make the best of what they have and hope for situations to change in their favor.
I was talking to some scouts out here, and one of them strongly said they need to bring Russ off the bench. I think that's great if you're playing NBA 2K, and just not a realistic option.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing as somebody last year.
Human.
Yeah, that's the whole thing is last year, somebody, when I had, right after the trade, I was talking to an executive, and they were like, well, this could work out if the Lakers are willing to bench Russell Westbrook late in games. And I said, well, that's not, you're not going to, that's not a feasible thing to do.
If you're doing that, you might as well send them home.
Right.
It's-
And frankly,
Okay.
they're probably better off if they do send them home at this point.
Again, the Westbrook who finished last season and said what he said at media day, I thought was untenable returning to the team. Now we've got Westbrook showing up with a smiling face, celebrating with Patrick Beverley. Is that Russell Westbrook who, is willing to drop a decade-old rivalry, however old it is? If it's not a decade, it's close.
No, I think, that's right up there.
Is he willing to also say, okay, I'll come off the bench or I'll sit at the end of games? Because last year they benched him down the stretch of a game and he took the next game off because he said his back hurt from sitting on the bench.
Right.
The guy who was an Iron Man for them last year.
Listen, I remember at this time last year, everybody was saying things are going to be so great and Russ was going to change and this was going to happen and that was going to happen. We are in the annual rite of passage where in September, everybody except for Lonzo Ball is healthy. Everybody's feeling good. Everybody's ready to go. It's all going to be awesome. It's all kumbaya. And then you get to mid-October and the season starts and then you really find out what's going on. And I'm going to make a very large wager on Russell Westbrook not changing his stripes at this point.
Yeah.
Because he's made his entire ethos off never changing his stripes. And I don't see that happening now.
This is like the 10 pounds of muscle for Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook is one of the most conditioned athletes I've ever seen in my life. So Russell Westbrook never has to come into camp and say, oh, I gained 10 pounds of muscle or I lost 15 pounds, because Russell Westbrook has been cut since the moment he walked into the league and hasn't had more than 3% body fat. So Russell Westbrook can't come into camp with I gained 10 pounds of muscle. Russell Westbrook needs to come into the camp with, I gained an understanding of where I am in the league. That's what
I'm willing to be a role player. Yeah.
And look,
good luck.
The one thing I will say, and I don't think this will happen, but the one thing I will say is this is a guy who's from LA, who was excited about being back in LA, who, if he has any sort of sense of what's going on around him at all, has to be looking around and saying, where is this going for me? And maybe that causes him to take a look in the mirror and say, all right, if I do want to be in LA and I do want to be on the Lakers, this is what I need to do. I personally do not think that's going to happen, but that is the pie in the sky, if you want to hope it works out, move for him to make.
Counterpoint, the statement his agent put out 1 month ago.
Oh,
I was just about to say, why doesn't he have the same agent anymore?
Well, listen, I've been the one who's been saying
long-term agent relationship.
Yeah, I'm the one who's been saying for years he's going to go out like Allen Iverson. I mean, I just think that's where this is headed, and he's going to be done in the very near future because he's not going to be a role player. And nothing's happened to this point to make me think otherwise. All
right. Well, I just watched that. I like to go back to old press conferences. Sometimes it's 3 years on, sometimes it's 3 months on, sometimes it's 3 weeks on. And let's just say I saved the link from that.
I like that buddy cop movie that we saw yesterday.
All right. Thanks, MacMahon. Travel home safe. Get back to Texas where you belong, and you can get sandwiches with credit cards late at night. And thank you, Bontemps. Hope your Mets win tonight. Never knew you were a Mets fan. All right. Thank you to our producers as well, everybody. Thanks for listening to Hoop Collective. We'll talk to you next week.
Adios, amigos.